Thank you for watching QTV with the news. My name is SUMBWE. We take a look at stories making headlines. The police have arrested the suspect behind the murder of Chinese national couple which occurred in SUMBWE on Wednesday the 19th of June. And government has formally effected provisions of Section 14 of the National Dialogue Forum NDF Act following the completion of the forum's work last month. And now details in our news. The police have arrested the suspect behind the murder of a Chinese national couple which occurred in SUMBWE on Wednesday the 19th of June. Inspector General of Police Kakoma Kanganja has identified the suspect as Kenneth Figo, age 26, of Katala village in SUMBWE, who worked for the victims as a salesman. Mr. Kanganja has disclosed that the suspect, who had gone into hiding, was apprehended from Barrastone area in Lusaka on Thursday the 20th of June. In a statement to Q News, Mr. Kanganja has, however, expressed displeasure at the leaking of the CCTV footage of the said murder, which has gone viral on social media. Mr. Kanganja states that the leaked footage has potential to jeopardize investigations. He has since appealed to members of the public to desist from such acts. Government has formally effected provisions of Section 14 of the National Dialogue Forum NDF Act following the completion of the forum's work last month. Minister of Justice Qtv News says in view of the adoption of the 3 bills by which have been adopted, everything is now in the system in accordance with the provisions of Section 14, subsection 7 of the NDF Act. Mr. Lubinda says this means that the minister responsible for the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 will now cause for the legislation to be gazetted. He has told Q News that the electoral practices and the public order amendment bills will equally now be presented to Parliament.
Everything is already in the system in accordance with the NDF Act. Everything is already in the system following the provisions of Section 14, subsection 7 of the NDF Act, which states that the minister responsible for the Constitutional Amendment Bill will cause for the bill to be presented for gazetting, and the other bills will be presented to Parliament. That's what I'm saying. Everything is already in the system.
Dangote Cement Zambia Limited says the fluctuations and unstable performance of the kwacha have adversely affected the performance of the company in the first half of 2019. Addressing a media briefing in Ndola, Dangote Zambia Chief Executive Officer Albert Karakos says a very big part of the company's cost structure, such as fuel, spare parts and other equipment, is in dollars, and therefore poor performance of the kwacha greatly affected the company. Mr. Kokos, however, disclosed that the company has maintained the record of 0 fatalities during the period under review of 2018 to the first half of 2019. He has also announced the company's intentions to increase exports to countries such as Burundi, DRC, and Malawi, where the brand has become the most preferred. Mr. Kokos has further announced his company's plans to supply power of between 8 and 10 megawatts to Copperbelt Energy Corporation (CEC) by 2020. And commenting on government's intention to introduce sales tax to replace the value-added tax, Mr. Kokos says his company will put in place modalities that will ensure reduction in production costs. The Zambia National Farmers Union ZNFU has disclosed that at least 14 large-scale farms whose owners owe commercial banks in Kabwe district of Central Province risk liquidation. ZNFU President Jervis Zimba says his union is also aware of another 20 farmers who have received demand letters over the debt they owe banks. Mr. Zimba states that this shows how urgent it is that government considers some debt relief for the farmers in the country. He says his union is thus waiting to hear from Finance Minister Margaret Manakatwe, to whom it recently wrote a letter requesting government's intervention in the plight of the farmers.
There are a lot of letters of demand, like in Kabwe there's about 14 farms which are under threat, and also in Mukusha about 20. So the situation is not good, and the numbers could be raising. Yeah, but now you can imagine that kind of farms if all of them are sold. Who's going to buy them anyway? It is extremely very urgent. That's why we discussed with her and we have put it in writing. So we are hoping for a response. As you are aware, we wrote a letter to the minister to give a debt relief to the farmers. We are still waiting for her response. As soon as the response comes, we shall be communicating to the public.
The opposition Patriots for Economic Progress PEP has disapproved on the decision to confer President Edgar Lungu with an honorary PhD degree in good governance. PEP leader Sean Tembo says his party thinks that the University of Zambia UNZA Senate has insulted the people of Zambia to make an endorsement of such conferment on President Lungu. In an interview with Qtv News, Mr. Tembo has urged that President Lungu's tenure has actually proved to be far from what good governance is. Mr. Tembo has based his argument on the alleged failure by government to manage the country's resources and its alleged failure to respect people's rights. He says his party has also observed that the rule of law is not being applied equitably to all citizens in the country.
The presidency of Mr. Edgar Lungu is very far from being characterized as something bordering on good governance for a number of reasons. When you talk about good governance, you are talking about being able to manage the resources of the nation for the benefit of the citizens. And when you look at Zambia at the moment, you have a situation where those in power, those who are aligned to the ruling party, are basically living a very high lifestyle, whereas the rest of the citizens of this republic are wallowing in poverty and are basically failing to have 2 square meals a day. Forget about 3 square meals. Just 2 square meals, lunch and supper, is a challenge to most of our citizens. So that is very humiliating on the citizenry, and it is very far from being a result that can be characterized as good governance for the country. When you look at the rule of law in this country, you realize that we basically have 2 classes of citizens. Those who are above the law, who are affiliated to the Patriotic Front, and the rest of us who are arrested on a daily basis on flimsy charges. So when you talk about the rule of law, it is very far from being characterized as good governance.
But Presence of God Ministries overseer Christopher Kunda is of the view that conferring President Lungu with an honorary PhD in good governance is good for the people of Zambia. Apostle Kunda thinks that conferring President Lungu with such a degree may just help him to reflect on governance and do better in his leadership. He has told QTV News in a separate interview that he believes that an honorary PhD in good governance will bring greater responsibility on the Republican president.
But for me, as an apostle, as a servant of God, the Bible says, give honor where the honor is due. Is to our president of this country. When they give him honor, I believe that it's a plus. Who knows that honor that they give to President Lungu, President of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, it will be able to reflect about their lives and to say it has, because every honor comes with great responsibility. I believe it will bring more responsibility to say that the University of Zambia, they have honored me with this degree about good governance. May I move in this way. I think in another ways it will help the president to reflect about governance and to do better.
Gender Minister Elizabeth Phiri has learned with anger the news of the defilement of a 3-day-old biological daughter leading to her death. And Ms. Phiri has revealed that her ministry, working in partnership with the Ministry of Home Affairs and other line ministries, is considering making sexual offences such as defilement and rape non-bailable. She has emphasized that this is in an effort to deter perpetrators of sexual violence. Ms. Phiri has told Q News that the defilement of any child is extremely worrying. Ms. Phiri has described the incident in Wapula province where a father defiled his 3-day-old biological daughter leading to her death as inhuman. She has since affirmed commitment of her ministry in ensuring justice for the victim.
Yes, that is the route to take, because you can see that most of the people, when they find themselves in cases like aggravated robbery, car theft robbery, they are bondable and bailable offenses. But we cannot respect a machine than a human being. It is important that we move in the direction of making these cases unbondable and unbailable. As a ministry, we are soon coming up with some policies into Parliament to see that we work together with the Ministry of Home Affairs to see how best we can have this matter unbailable or unbondable, because it is a serious issue. A loss of life cannot be taken lightly.
Commerce Minister Christopher Eluma has reminded the private sector that successful implementation of government policies depends on businesses translating opportunities into tangible outputs. Mr. Eluma says his ministry is saddened that some people spend more time lamenting instead of looking at opportunities government policies present. Speaking when he officiated at the Zambia Association of Manufacturers ZAM 33rd Annual General Meeting, Mr. Eluma urged businesses to take advantage of the policies government has put in place. Mr. Eluma says government wants the business community to use such policies to contribute to wealth and job creation in the country. He states that government would like to see more of the citizens participate in the economic recovery of the country through enhanced value addition.
We all aspire to see Zambia transformed into a prosperous middle-income nation by 2030. In order to attain this vision, we have undertaken to grow the contribution of manufacturing to the gross domestic product from the current 8% to 18% in 2030. This is a mammoth task and calls for a concerted effort from everyone. And I'm glad to say you've just said it in a better, figure than what the government is trying to focus. In this regard, Government of the Republic of Zambia, through the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, and in collaboration with Zambia Association of Manufacturers and other stakeholders, has developed supportive policies, strategies, and legislation aimed at promoting value addition.
Speaking at the same annual general meeting, outgoing ZAM President Rosetta Chavala expressed concern over the unstable tax policies, which she says impact negatively on the manufacturing sector.
There are inconsistencies and sometimes disruptive policies, budget in, budget out. Each year we go for the national budget, which do not support medium to long-term business growth. And that we need to guard against. If we introduce a tax in the budget, or even outside the budget, we must ensure that that tax actually stands the test of time. It actually supports the sector, and we live to see some results out of that tax before we can reverse it. But these reversals of tax reforms and any other policies for that matter really impact negatively on the manufacturing sector. The rising cost of doing business due to increasing tax burdens levied on local enterprise erodes business profitability and constrains their ability to reinvest.
Movement for Multi-Party Democracy MMD Nervous Movement faction says it is too early to predict who will emerge winner in the 2021 general elections. Reacting to UK-based Economics Intelligence Unit that the ruling Patriotic Front, led by President Edgar Lungu, will remain in power beyond 2021, MMD Nervous Mumba faction spokesperson Kefas Mukuka has emphasized that it is too early to be talking about 2021 elections when there are important issues that need to be addressed in the country. He has told QTV News that 2021 is not even around the corner to start talking about the elections.
But I think we just pray and hope that the people of this country, Zambia, are going to remain steadfast. I think it's too early to start talking of who is going to win the 2021 general elections, because 2021 is not today. It's not even around the corner. We can only start to talk about such things in 2021 itself, after seeing where the political wind will be blowing. As for now, the political wind is not blowing in any direction. It's just blowing normally. So I think it's not a good thing. We also hope and pray that that report is not said in order to sway people's thinking, to play on people's psychology, and that would be dangerous. But in a nutshell, Zambians are not down to understand things. They already understand things. They are going to compare that report with what is happening politically, with what is happening socially and economically. and after that they'll make a decision. And that decision is going to be a wise decision, like they've done in the past.
The Zambia Cooperative Federation Director General J. Shira has reiterated a call to citizens to have a transformation of mindset in averting the hunger situation in the country. Mr. Shira says a shift of mindset from relying on maize as a staple food to other crops such as millet, sorghum and cassava is cardinal in ensuring national food security. He observed that even yam, that is also considered to be a West African crop, should be embraced as it has proved to be drought resistant in eastern and western provinces of Zambia. Advocacy Against Child Abuse and Gender-Based Violence Executive Director Belion Chola has added his voice in condemning the alleged defiling of a 3-day-old baby in Wapula province. Mr. Chola says that it is unfortunate that people who are expected to be guardians and protectors of the children are now the ones bringing harm to them. He states that the police should ensure that the defiler of the 3-day-old baby is brought to book and punished so that he could be an example to would-be offenders.
We condemn this because as a nation, where Zambia is a signatory to a number of treaties, and it being a Christian nation, and much of the sensitization that has been done on these defilement cases, we expect that people should respond to the call to refrain and stay from defiling of children. It's so pity that an adult who's supposed to be a protector, a provider, an incubator of a child is the one that instead decides to defile a minor who expects to be loved and cared by that adult. It's so unfortunate that he took this path of defiling a 3-day-old child.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. The police have arrested the suspect behind the murder of a Chinese national couple which occurred in SUMBWE on Wednesday, the 19th of June. And government has formally effected provisions of Section 14 of the National Dialogue Forum NDF Act following the completion of the forum's work last month. On that note, we come to the end of the news. Thank you for watching.